Okay, let's dive in to this. Welcome to The Explainer, where we take those hidden, complex mechanics of the financial world and break them right down so you can actually see what's happening behind the scenes. And today, well, Elon Musk is setting something absolutely massive in motion. He's laying the groundwork for an initial public offering, an IPO, for SpaceX. But listen, this isn't just your standard tech unicorn going public. We are literally witnessing the preparation for the single largest initial public offering in human history. The sheer, mind-boggling scale of this financial event is honestly pretty difficult to wrap your head around, which is exactly why we need to map out this entire financial architecture together.
So, ask yourself this. How big is the largest IPO in human history? I mean, normally, when a massive, highly anticipated company hits the stock exchange, we expect valuations in the billions, right? Even the biggest tech offerings over the last 10 years usually hover around the tens of billions of dollars, and those are historically huge sums of capital. But to truly understand the sheer magnitude of this SpaceX offering, we basically have to take all of our standard market measurements and throw them completely out the window. We need to totally recalibrate our expectations of what a private corporation can realistically demand when it finally opens its doors to the public markets.
And here's that recalibration. $1.75 trillion. That is the target valuation reportedly being prepped for SpaceX. It is a number with so much gravity that it practically bends the financial space around it. To demand a $1.75 trillion valuation right out of the gate is an unprecedented, completely historic move. Now, you might be wondering, where on earth is this immense valuation coming from? Well, it's fueled by their total dominance in low Earth orbit, the insanely fast expansion of Starlink's satellite internet revenue, and their ironclad grip on those extremely lucrative government and defense launch contracts. They essentially hold a monopoly on getting things into space efficiently. But grasping a number this massive just floating in a vacuum, it's incredibly difficult.
Section 1. Visualizing the scale. Grasping $1.75 trillion.
To truly anchor this massive valuation in reality, we really need to compare SpaceX to some heavyweights you already know. Now, what's really interesting about this is how it stacks up against the legacy defense giants. Just imagine gathering up every single American defense contractor. We're talking about the sprawling legacy corporations that build the fighter jets, the aircraft carriers, the advanced missile systems, the entire infrastructure of the United States military-industrial complex. If you combine the total market capitalization of that entire sector into one massive entity, SpaceX's target valuation still outweighs all of them combined. One single space company is being positioned as more valuable than the entire machine that arms the US military. That is wild.
But okay, if defense doesn't quite paint the full picture for you, consider global commerce. Think about the absolute titans of industry: Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Disney, Nike, and Starbucks. These are cultural mega brands with massive global infrastructure, selling products to billions of people across literally every continent every single day. If you took the total market caps of all 5 of these global empires and visualized stacking them directly on top of each other, their combined weight still wouldn't reach that $1.75 trillion mark SpaceX is aiming for. It completely dwarfs the most recognizable consumer brands in human history.
Let's see how this builds, because this scale extends way beyond just American brands. Consider the international financial markets. At $1.75 trillion, this single aerospace entity actually surpasses the combined value of the top 10 most valuable companies listed on the entire London Stock Exchange. Just think about the history and the sheer weight of that market. It's one of the oldest, most established financial capitals in the world, home to colossal energy firms, massive global banks, pharmaceutical giants. You could bundle the top 10 powerhouses driving the UK economy together, and they still do not equal the proposed weight of this one single California-based space venture.
Section 2. The profitability paradox, the multi-billion-dollar bleed.
Now, normally, you would assume a company valued higher than Disney, Nike, Starbucks, Coca-Cola, and McDonald's combined is just generating unimaginable record-breaking profits, right? But here is the massive paradox: negative $5 billion. Despite the $1.75 trillion price tag, SpaceX is actually operating at a massive loss. They are bleeding through $5 billion every single year. The infrastructure required to maintain global dominance in space is just staggering. Between funding the rapid, highly iterative development of the Starship program, which, includes incredibly expensive test flights and literal explosions, maintaining the crazy cadence of Falcon 9 launches, and constantly deploying new Starlink satellites, the cash burn is astronomical. It's an incredibly capital-intensive endeavor.
So, a company operating in a multi-billion-dollar annual deficit is simultaneously preparing for the largest, highest-valued IPO in the history of human civilization. It is a massive contradiction that desperately demands an explanation, which leads us to the ultimate burning question. Who in the world is buying this? Seriously,
Who is the buyer stepping up to the plate with enough capital to purchase shares in a company losing $5 billion a year, and doing so at the most expensive valuation ever conceived? Finding an investor pool large enough to absorb this much financial weight is an engineering problem all on its own.
Section 3. The buyer revealed. Follow the money.
Well, the answer to this question isn't some secretive sovereign wealth fund. It's not a small syndicate of eccentric tech billionaires. So the crucial point here is that the ultimate buyer is actually you. Whether you actively logged into a brokerage account to trade today or whether you barely even check your finances, the broader market architecture is being meticulously arranged so that everyday retail capital is the primary engine funding this operation.
As the source material reveals, within a few short weeks of this process unfolding, your own retirement account is slated to become one of the biggest buyers of this stock. We are talking specifically about the massive passive index funds, the Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street funds that make up the absolute backbone of everyday 401ks, pensions, and target date retirement funds. These passive investment vehicles, which millions of us automatically funnel a percentage of our paychecks into every single month, are being positioned to absorb this monumental offering. Your retirement account is essentially being drafted to support the largest IPO in history completely automatically.
Section 4. The new NASDAQ rule. Changing the game. So how is it even possible that your index fund could be committed to buying into a company losing $5 billion a year? Well, this brilliantly illustrates the hidden mechanics of the market. The quote says it all. NASDAQ quietly introduced a brand new rule designed specifically to make that happen. You see, traditionally, index funds only buy shares of public companies that meet really strict profitability and trading history metrics. But this new rule essentially creates a massive bypass. It allows major exchanges to forcefully insert a newly listed mega-cap company directly into major indices almost immediately upon its IPO. When a company is added to an index like the NASDAQ 100 or S&P 500, every single passive index fund tracking that benchmark is mechanically obligated to buy the stock, regardless of the company's annual losses. The system literally forces vast pools of everyday retirement capital to automatically purchase the shares, providing the built-in liquidity needed to prop up a $1.75 trillion valuation.
Which leaves us with a final, absolutely critical thought to ponder. Are you prepared for your retirement to fund the ultimate space gamble? We've unpacked the unprecedented trillion-dollar valuation, we've explored the staggering capital burn required to colonize space, and we've analyzed the quiet regulatory changes designed to funnel massive amounts of passive savings directly into this historic offering. This fundamental shift completely changes how we need to look at our own passive investments. Keep your eyes on the markets, look deeply under the hood of your index funds, and always question the mechanisms moving your money. Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to go investigate this quiet market shift for yourself.